Guys, I know I said that, well, Sonic was a thing. What if Izuku was Sonic? But, I was going through all of my videos, all my content, and, basically, I came up across, well, I didn't come up across my, Bill Cipher what if. I basically didn't really get rid of it, I just renamed it to fit the story I'm going to be covering. And I also found my old What If Izuku had a Rainbow Dash of a Quirk What If. And seeing as if you guys have been longtime fans of the channel, you would know me enough to know that I freaking love the symbiotes. And Carnage is my bestest boy out of all the symbiotes. He is bestest boy. So, I decided, well, there are indeed, like, My Little Pony, like, fan fiction things. Like, one of them is called The Symbiote, and the other one is a sequel to The Symbiote. It's called The Parasite. The Symbiote is about Twilight being bonded with the Venom symbiote, and the sequel one called The Parasite is about, well, basically, in the Equestria Girls version of My Little Pony, basically, Sunset Shimmer is bonded with Carnage in the sequel that's called The Parasite. And, well, that just got me thinking, like, Izuku, Rainbow Dash, and, like, oh, the third thing I thought of including in there. Oh my god. My jowlies had went to explosion mode. It's safe to say that my jollies went into explosion mode. Ah, shit. I think I forgot something. Guys, Jiffy. How much of a jiffy? Well, prepare your asses. Zawardo! Time resumes. And I'm back. Yes, I too can pull some freaking dealable bullshit. You thought it was someone else, but no, it was I, Dio! I freaking love that Dio meme, like, no, it was I, Dio! Hmm. Here, boys, we have... First, before I do the whole rainbow thing, because now I really want to do the rainbow thing because of what I thought of and what I may be thinking of for the future. Who knows, it could be another What If Izuku had the Carnage symbiote. Another case of that. That was the palate cleanser. Ah. Mm. Mm. So basically, this right here, if you didn't just but type the freaking name of the video and came across this randomly, no, if you actually meant to come across this, or you saw this like somewhere in like your notifications, if you actually did indeed see this and read the title, you would know it is What If Izuku Midoriya Was Bill Cipher's Reincarnation? How was this going to be done? Well, let's just say that considering the ending of Gravity Falls and how basically it could be left to interpretation that Bill may not actually be dead because of what happened with Stan's memories, I'm gonna just say that it's the next summer they come back, and Mabel and Dipper, though Mabel a little bit before Dipper, are able to indeed realize that there's some shit that has gone wrong. Dipper's solution to this, well, basically, seeing as, the whole mind thing didn't work, well, Bill is still inside Stan's head, so Dipper figures out, Dipper basically figures that if he kills Stan, somehow, he would kill Bill. No, I'm not talking about the Tarantino film. Though I will admit, Quentin is pretty good. Tarantino's pretty hot sauce. Not like Michael Bay, who is the weak sauce. Basically, Dipper just does some rummaging around, finds a handgun that's loaded with the safety off. Of course, Dipper had to do some fiddling around in order to get the safety turned off. And, well, while nobody was really around to hear the gunshots, and, well, also thinking that his sister Mabel was asleep. I believe they're either sisters or cousins. Basically believing that Mabel was asleep when really she was too busy plotting her own way to get rid of Bill to be asleep. Though basically that meant that she would have to fake sleep in order, to have Dipper just go on and do whatever he was going to do. He hadn't really said anything about what he planned to do to Mabel, basically keeping her in the dark about his own little secrets, and that kind of hit her really hard. But she was like, she had to be strong because if Dipper's way failed, then the only other way would be her way. And she already had indeed come up with something that was pretty concrete, that at least, even if it didn't directly kill Bill for good, it would at least make him less of a threat to the safety of the people of Gravity Falls, and even the safety of people of wherever he ended up after Mabel ended up doing what she ended up doing. But basically, after sneaking up behind his Uncle Stan, his Uncle Stan the Man. No, not Stan Lee. Stan for Pines. And, shooting him several times in the head just to make sure that he killed him. Bill, being the little slippery devil that he is, basically made an exit in a way to where he would be able to exit, but, Dipper wouldn't see him. So he would have thought that he had, gotten rid of Bill. But Mabel would know better because, well, he kept himself hidden from Dipper's vision. That's the only person he really did that. Because he didn't know that Mabel, while being awake, that basically meant that she could also, see Bill, seeing as he was only focused on keeping himself hidden from Dipper. So she automatically knew that that was an epic fail. And not only that, but thanks to Dipper's epic fail attempt at killing Bill, they are now down a Dunkel. And, now the Mystery Shack has no freaking owner. But Mabel will be like, there are more pressing matters than the freaking ownership of the Mystery Shack. Like, the lives of people, so none of that weird Mageddon bullshit happens again. And Bill never gets his physical form again. Like, yeah. Or at least not until, like the near future or whatever. Like, the not-so-near future. Basically, what Mabel's little attempt is a spell that is basically a way of, it will temporarily, kill Bill. And whatever he is technically brought back in the way in which the spell would bring him back, which is via reincarnation, or via reincarnation, basically, yeah, he would be reincarnated as a human, and thus not nearly as much of a threat, like a direct threat to the Pines, and seeing as the human would most likely not know that they were Bill Cipher's reincarnation, would not openly go to, threaten the lives of innocent people, wherever they were. Yes, Mabel would basically know that the spell is so powerful, actually putting Bill's existence into, hibernation mode. for like an extended period of time until he's inevitably reincarnated as like a being of Mabel's choice, which is, well, a human, seeing as, well, compared to, you know, humans and Bill, whenever in comparisons, humans don't seem to be nearly as strong, like, in like the capability of how much damage someone can do. So, you know, like the world. And I'm not talking about D.S.M. I'm talking about the world as in the world in which we all live in. But doing this, well, it would take so much magical power and umbrage in order to enact this spell that it's basically considered one of the most forbidden spells ever. And, well, basically, that it's basically a quintuple S rank spell. It's quintuple, so 5 S's. Quintuple S rank spell. 5 S's. That's how powerful the spell is supposed to be. Then again, you are getting rid of Bill Cipher for an extended amount of time until he's reincarnated into whatever form you wished him to be reincarnated into whenever he eventually did get reincarnated. You know, whenever it eventually did happen. So, yeah. It would pretty much have to be something that, you know, hardcore level crazy in order for it to actually do anything to Bill. But the spell is also considered not just a quintuple S rank spell, but in the way it's considered a quintuple S rank spell isn't just because of how powerful it is, it's because of the sacrifice that needs to be done in order for the spell to work. The sacrifice being not just any sacrifice, a blood for blood sacrifice. Basically, the blood from the person who the spell would be used on is basically like the equivalent to what the spell is being used for. And the blood for the person who is using the spell would basically not just be blood, it would literally be their life. Their very life itself. That's why it's the ultimate sacrifice. Because, well, it's really more or less the ultimate sacrifice, or the ultimate sacrifice on her own life, Mabel's own life. And Mabel feels that after experiencing all of that weird Mageddon BS, that no matter what has to be done, if it has to be done in order to get rid of Bill, she will do it. Like what Dipper's solution was basically a shot in the dark. But no, Mabel's pretty much ironclad faux show that this will fix the problem of Bill's, iron fist upon each and every person that's a part of Gravity Falls. However, seeing as the reincarnation, unless it was someone inside of Gravity Falls, you'd have to remove all the unicorn hairs in order for, the reincarnation spot to be somewhere that's not Gravity Falls, because Bill can't leave Gravity Falls because of the unicorn hairs. So that's basically what Mabel does. Basically, she does something to keep Dipper distracted, while she basically comes up with some sort of distraction for her brother so that he is not aware of the fact that she is about to remove the unicorn hairs. However, this also serves another purpose, to draw Bill out. Bill believing himself to be free now that the unicorn hairs are gone. Actually insulting Mabel, calling her stupid for doing something that literally is going to give him free reign to go wherever the hell he wants to go now. Without the unicorn hairs, he basically can go wherever he wants. That's whenever Mabel is just like laughing to herself, and Bill's like, "What the hell do you think is so damn funny, kid?" Now let me get in my real Bill Cipher voice. "Hey, what the hell do you think is so damn funny, kid?" And Mabel will just point to the ground, and Bill Cipher will realize he's in the middle of some sort of like precursor summoning circle type thing. But he notices that it isn't the Zodiac. No, it is not the Zodiac at all. It is something completely different. And by the time Bill realizes what it is, it's too late. Because Mabel basically has already started the chanting. And it just so happens that the chant for this spell is almost word for word, like backwards message word, the same as the spell that Gideon used to summon Bill in the first place. Yes, literally. Backwards word for backwards word, the same incantation. But just a different, type of circle. For Bill to be stuck in, as basically he's being traded off. As Mabel is also trading herself off. Mabel giving up her own existence, and Bill basically having to forfeit himself until the point in which he will have a worthy reincarnation. However, don't think that Dipper didn't realize that something was going up whenever a laser shot out of the freaking sky, which basically trapped Bill inside the circle. Yeah, don't think Dipper didn't realize the freaking sky laser. Yeah, Dipper, by now he's definitely gonna notice something like that. He's been through way too much hell the last time that they spent a summer at Gravity Falls, him and his sister, to not notice that shit. And be prepared for the worst. And basically, Dipper just sees what's going on and remembers, like, Mabel mumbling something to herself about something. And then Dipper's finally able to, basically trace back the lip flaps, the lip movements into, like, possible words, what those words could have been. And then he realizes she was thinking of a plan. A plan apparently far more successful than what he was thinking of. Like, if it's causing this to happen. And Bill does look pretty distressed, but Dipper kind of being able to tell what's been going on through all of the different stuff concerning the plan that Mabel was mumbling to herself about, hoping that her mumbles, would make it inaudible, the actual plan, inaudible to Dipper, so that he wouldn't have actually heard. But in, like, putting all the mouth movements together in the exact order, he's able to figure out, like, basically, that it's like being mouthed. And he's able to figure out what's being mouthed. And whenever Dipper inevitably figures out everything, Dipper's like, if this is going to happen to his sister because she basically saw no other way to get rid of Bill and, like, him stay gone, then Dipper is going to make, like, her sacrifice worth something by basically both Bill and, you know, both Bill and Mabel were standing in the circle. It's just that Bill was standing in the center of the circle. Mabel's standing in the outermost part of the circle. Because the circle has many layers, and so the outermost part, the outermost layer, is where Mabel would have been. Because the outermost part is like pretty much the safe zone, so that you yourself don't get hit by that spell. And upon the safe zone, Dipper basically he pricks himself with like some sort of tree branch that broke off that he found. He basically pricks his finger, and with his blood from his finger, writes down his name and several other things to alter the spell in a way that would make the sacrifice all the more worth it. In the end, he would still know that Mabel was still going to end up dying, and that he would be the lone survivor out of the Pines. Well, that is, besides, like, Ford Pines. Basically, Stan and Mabel Pines would both be gone. And so, Ford Pines and Dipper Pines would be the only pines left in Gravity Falls. That is until the day in which, Dipper and Mabel are, picked back up from, Gravity Falls. Whenever the parents realize that Mabel is nowhere to be found, however, there is indeed a gravestone. They end up reading the epitaph. The epitaph saying that both Mabel and Bill, and that, but instead of saying Bill, it would say Bill-ish. And basically, Dipper would basically explain that the reason why it's Bill-ish is that the spell that we used to get rid of Bill this time, basically what we used to get rid of Bill this time, is something that would just end up with him reincarnated into something that was a whole lot less hazardous to the people of wherever he was going to end up. Because indeed, before actually using the spell, Mabel, I do indeed intend to reminding you that she removed all of the unicorn hairs. So, basically, Bill isn't reincarnated into anyone from, like, Gravity Falls. Basically, wherever he ends up, he's not going to end up anywhere to where he, like, hurts someone. And even if he tried, like, he would be in a body which would have its own will to go against him, and seeing as he would have just been newly reincarnated, he wouldn't have much choice but to follow the will of that person. Basically, a taste of his own medicine. Seeing as he used to do that a lot, to a lot of the members of, basically Gravity Falls. He used to have that as one of his favorite pastimes, to just possess people and have them succumb to his will. So basically, think of it as a taste of his own medicine. And well, after parents figuring out what Dipper did to Stan, thinking that it would actually fix the problem, when in all reality, Bill just slunk away without even really having to worry about anything. So, Dipper, whenever sent back home, is, sentenced to juvie. However, it's not a permanent sentence. It only lasts till he's like around the age of like 18. And well, Dipper unknowingly is going to be the one who is responsible for Bill's reincarnation. The one thing that Bill was able to influence himself, at the last second he realized that Dipper was influencing the spell, so he would have been trying to influence the spell, and the one matter of influence that he was able to do upon the little circle, like the deepest part of the circle, was to engrave his own name. As to which, seeing as both their names were there, and Bill was going to be the one that was reincarnated, not Dipper, basically, when eventually Dipper would get with someone, finally, get to have a family, this someone would be Inko. And Inko would generally think this person to be Hisashi, and her last name is going to be Midoriya, but not because of the fact that this Hisashi individual is a Midoriya. No, it turns out that she was never really told Hisashi's actual last name. That is until the day whenever Hisashi finally decides to reveal his little secret, that Hisashi is not his actual real name, that he is actually someone who's from the US and moved over to Japan, and his actual real name is Dipper Pines. So basically I'm saying that, Inko's last name will originally have been Midoriya, and so whenever Izuku is born, he will be Izuku Midoriya Pines. However, that's the whole thing. First comes love, then comes marriage, then the baby carriage. That's the whole thing. Bill's little engraving of his own name basically meant that whenever, Dipper did what Dipper did, get in love with Inko, marry her, and eventually conceive a child with her, that's how Bill would be reincarnated. He may be a human whenever he's reincarnated, but it will be the ultimate thorn in Dipper's side that Bill would be his son. That's how Bill would be reincarnated, people. He would be reincarnated as Dipper's son, and Dipper would automatically know this because of the reflection in Izuku's eyes whenever he first opens them after being born. The reflection is the Illuminati symbol. Basically replaces his pupils. They're not pupils. The first thing that he sees instead of pupils is the Illuminati symbol. A symbol that's, directly uncanny resemblance to Bill Cipher. But then, Izuku's eyes return back to normal. However, because of that little moment where they turn into the Illuminati symbol, that's basically whenever Dipper would know, oh shit. Bill was able to influence the seal to make it to where he would be the one basically reincarnated through the child that me and Inko would have. Like, he would just have one of those, moments where he would be, cursing himself. He's basically now the father of the reincarnation of Bill Cipher. Bill may not be able to directly influence the kid in any way that would, like, force him to do something that he wouldn't want to do. In fact, Bill's actually pretty sure that he basically has been forced to forfeit all of his power to this child of the Pines family. The Pines family's very own Dipper. Yes, that's right. Bill Cipher is able to figure out pretty quick that he can't really stop this from happening. He basically has no other choice but to forfeit his magical power over to this kid. But that won't happen until he becomes around the age of 5. You see, on the visit to the quirk doctor, because around this time, would have been the time where quirks would have been popping around. And, well, so that would mean that Izuku would want to go to the quirk doctor's office. You know, the appointment where he would get checked up on, see what his quirk is. And I just came up with, like, probably one of the most clever names I thought I ever, like, came up with. And I just now came up with it. It wouldn't be Bill Cipher anymore. It would actually be something I think is really clever because, well, the name of the kid that they had is Izuku. So, instead of it being Bill Cipher, it would be Izuku Cipher. But the quirk wouldn't be called Izuku Cipher. It'd actually be given, like, one of those things where it's, like, more than one, or, like, it belongs to the person, or it is a thing that a person has, you know, that. So, like, an apostrophe S. So, the quirk's name would indeed be, yes, you heard that right, Izuku's Cipher. That would be the name of the quirk, Izuku's Cipher. And why would it be named that? Well, it's safe to say that whenever an event like Armageddon happens, even if it's not known to the general populace of the rest of the world all that much, there would still be some survivors left who would spread the word about the catastrophes that Bill Cipher, you know, inflicted upon Gravity Falls. And so, word would indeed spread around about Bill Cipher. Oh, that's good shit. So yeah, all about that. So basically, whenever the quirk doctor would, you know, figure out about Izuku calling his quirk that because of what exactly he can do, well, let's just say, give a quick old rundown about what he can do. Currently, like what he currently knows that he can do. He may have all of Bill's powers, with Bill having no say in the matter, but, you know, because of that much of a landslide in actual relevance that Bill's taken, that basically means that there would be some repercussions. Those repercussions being that Izuku wouldn't be able to unlock all of these powers right away, but there would still be some powers that Bill would still have up his sleeve, but slowly and surely, as Izuku unlocks more of the powers would be taken away from Bill, until Izuku was just the living embodiment of a good boy Bill Cipher. Because this is a hero what if, not a villain what if, surprisingly. Or I guess you could say it is both a hero and a villain what if, considering what exactly, you know, Izuku can already do. Mainly, the aspect, basically the everything to do with the base concept of what his quirk is now. Like, the main part of it, the main part of what it can do, kind of like the Shadow Clone Jutsu and the Rasengan, which one is more like an iconic and like integral to the character of Naruto, which one is more Naruto's thing, like the Shadow Clone Jutsu or the Rasengan, a debate in between that. Kind of like a debate in between all of his powers. But basically, the most iconic one that Izuku would have right off the bat would be the one that Bill Cipher pulled whenever Gideon summoned him. And yes, in this what if, Gideon lives. Why does Gideon live? Well, let's just say Izuku wasn't the only one who felt like traveling to Japan. In fact, one of the first people that, that Dipper met up with after he got to Japan, he actually ran into Gideon. Not as enemies, but this time as friends. Because of the sacrifice that Gideon was willing to make in that part of Weirdmageddon where Dipper was able to convince Gideon that he'd never win Mabel's heart doing what he was doing in the midst of all the Weirdmageddon shit. Or ever, really. Being the way that he was being. And so, basically, that changed Gideon, and thus now, whenever Gideon greets, Dipper, whenever he would have greeted him, he wouldn't have just greeted him as Gideon, he would have greeted him as the miracle hero, Gideon. Yes, that's right, the miracle hero. Technically, whenever Gideon was first introduced in the show Gravity Falls, he was supposed to be this miracle working child who could, pull off all this crazy shit. And now that quirks are finally coming into being, this specific aspect about him would have sprung up as sort of his quirk. He would now actually be able to pull off real miracles. And that's why he's called the miracle hero, Gideon. And actually, Dipper would be pretty happy for Gideon becoming a hero instead of, being a good old sourpuss. Big old sourpuss. And, well, as people would want to know what the hell the miracle hero Gideon is doing with this random person, Gideon would basically just, whisper into Dipper's ear, "Is it okay if I say we're friends?" And Dipper's Dipper not wanting to be crowded too much by all of the general populace asking questions, would have just allowed it to be. He would have been like, "Sure, fine, whatever." And Gideon would just be like, "Friends, we're friends. We know each other. You may not be a hero like me, you may not be a pro hero like me, but we still do indeed know each other. You could say we have a very miracleistic past." And so, yeah. And, being, friends with a pro hero, especially a pro hero like Gideon, would indeed have its own benefits. However, Gideon would indeed one day unveil to Dipper that he's actually planning on helping with a little something, an overseas project called the Villain Rehabilitation Program, where basically they take certain villains that they believe can be redeemed and they basically put them through a rehabilitation program, but it's overseas. And well, Dipper, seeing as there are extra benefits that come with this program, he would basically say that he would like to kind of work as a sort of intern for Gideon as he's doing this work on this little, rehabilitation program for the villains. And so that's why, Dipper would be working overseas, just like Hisashi in canon. He'd be working overseas as an intern, sort of like how it's like an intern in a hero agency. Basically, Dipper would be that to Gideon. Gideon would be the hero, and Dipper would be the intern type, because he himself is not a hero, but he is indeed affiliated with a hero. And by affiliated, I mean really good friends with said hero. And Gideon is one of the main figureheads. Turns out he's actually one of the main figureheads of this entire rehabilitation program in the first place, because Gideon figured that if he could change, if someone like him could change, then villains should be allowed to get the chance to change. So yeah, basically, it's kind of like, the Founding Fathers of America. One of those Founding Fathers of the Villain Rehabilitation Program would have been Gideon. That's how important to this whole entire program that Gideon actually is. He's one of their founding, pillars of the entire program. And seeing as he's such good friends with Dipper, and Dipper's such good friends with him, Dipper gets... It's safe to say that Dipper gets good treatment, and that, whenever Dipper mentions that, the money could be good to help support his family that are overseas, he actually gets pretty big fat stack paychecks to do, whatever he, wanted to do while he was overseas, but also to help support his family that are overseas. So yeah, that's basically how that runs down. But before Dipper would indeed leave to do the overseas thing, just like how Hisashi did in canon, Dipper would indeed do something for Inko that he would indeed believe help her with Izuku should he ever go all Bill Cipher mode on their asses. He would have made his own versions of the original 3 six-finger-handed books, with the 1 on it, and the one with the 2 on it, and the one with the 3 on it. Only since these books are new, it would be a 4, 5, and 6. A 6-fingered hand book with a 4 on it, a 6-fingered hand book with a 5 on it, and a 6-finger handbook with a 6 on it. Because these are new ones. These are the next generation of those books. And they would have all sorts of info on how to deal with the kind of power that, Izuku's, thinking that might come from their kid's quirk. And, past experiences with something similar to this. Very similar to this, actually. You see, the way the most basic, one of the most basic, dollar store versions of, powers that his quirk gives him, one of the most dollar store powers that his quirk gives him, though it is very versatile, it's also very dollar store in that, it's one of the most basic ones. It's very basic, but also very versatile. So that's why I say dollar store. One of the most dollar store, mediocre sauce powers that he has, but also being, considered very versatile as well. That power being a sort of something that you could consider a deal with the devil. In which basically, if it works anything like Bill's power, basically anyone who, makes a deal with him, and, in order to enclose that deal, make it, set in stone, shakes his hand afterwards, after making said deal, basically finalizing the deal, well, they would get what they asked for, but seeing as it's a deal, they would have to give Izuku something in return, what he wanted from them in return for giving them what they wanted. And there would be dire consequences if someone didn't follow those rules. That is basically his most basic power. A power, called deal. Or deal making. And Izuku, as soon as he gets the quirk, seeing as it's his most basic, but yet versatile, and also dollar store, power that his quirk gives him, it's the first one that he ever uses, and he actually uses it on some sort of, basically, one time Izuku and Inko's, basically their house was invaded by some guy who was, basically, he was trying to rob them for all they were worth in order to get enough money to basically, for basically the doctors to consider, continuing the operation for this person's, sister. Basically, the person that's robbing them has a sister who is deathly ill, and, the person themselves, they don't have a lot of money, so they've just been going around robbing everyone for everything they're worth, going from house to house, doing this, and, Izuku, once he can inevitably tell that that's why he's doing it, because, Izuku does indeed have his own little thing to where he can kind of tell what certain people are thinking at certain times. He has that way of, reading people for all that they're worth at a time. And so that's how Izuku was able to figure out, without even needing to, ask the guy why he was doing what he was doing, and for what purpose. And once he figured out that it was actually to keep their sister alive, he actually kind of felt really sympathetic towards this guy who people would normally just consider a villain because he was doing what he was doing. Stealing from other people just so that he could get the money to have the doctors continue the operation. And so Izuku is basically like, well, mister, I seem to know what you want. However, there's also something I want. We can make a deal with the power of my quirk, and, well, the only thing that could be at all off-putting about what I'm saying to you right now is what you would have to give me in return. Basically, I will supply you with enough money that you would need for the doctors to continue the operation until your sister was back to full health. All you have to do is, well, Eventually, whenever you are inevitably found out by a pro hero, surrender without any sort of resistance. And all of the money will be paid forward, and we can be, all jolly and shit. You can be happy knowing that your sister will be alive and healthy, and, well, the reason why that would be is because of the deal you made with me. And Inko would just be like tripping at this, does he really think he can do that? Like, I knew there was some weird stuff, that was going on with Izuku, inside of Izuku's eyes on the way home from the quirk doctor, and that the quirk doctor, what he said about Izuku's quirk sounded pretty silly. And plus the name, Izuku is just 5, so I guess, whatever he thinks is a cute enough name, I guess is okay in my book. But this just seems a little bit too far-fetched to be true. That is until, basically, the quote-unquote villain basically agrees to these terms wholeheartedly whenever they see all the shit in Izuku's eyes going around, like, almost like his eyes were like a series of different glitched images. Pulling the same shit that he did whenever Gideon summoned him, like whenever Bill Cipher was summoned by Gideon. Bill Cipher's body becoming all these different images at once. That's basically what's happening with Izuku's eyes as he's explaining basically what his quirk is going to help him do for this guy if he just agrees to the terms of the deal. And the last thing that Izuku mentions, in order to finalize the deal, we gotta shake hands. Hope you don't mind. I wouldn't think someone like you, no offense, but I wouldn't think someone like you would be considered a germaphobe or anything. Plus, I like to keep myself relatively clean. Just in case something like that does come about. So, I don't think there's any shame in, doing this. Do you? That's whenever blue fire would pop up into Izuku's hands, and, Inko would now just have, thoughts in her head that, oh my god, the quirk, it actually does have multiple powers, and one of the powers is exactly what my son said it was. He is literally going to make a deal like that, and it might just possibly work out for this guy. I gotta check up on the news later today. Just see exactly what the damage is going to be. And, indeed, that's something Inko would end up doing as well. The guy, no second thoughts, even after seeing blue fire erupt into Izuku's hand that he was going to shake, the deal would be finalized by said handshake. Izuku and the person shaking hands. And now the deal would be made as there would be a ring heard and this guy's cell phone. Basically, he stole somebody and was able to get in contact with the doctors. So that's why he would be able to tell it was the doctors, because he had made new contacts on the phone that he stole so that he could keep in touch with the doctors. Changing the number of the phone to the number of the last phone he could never remember having, just so that nobody would be asking any questions. trying to be as under the radar as possible. And he would hear a ring coming from that specific cell phone as he would answer the phone and be told that apparently in the little savings account that he dropped by, like the money over towards the doctors, his money account seems to have quintupled in size. And, well, the look on the guy's face after hearing this, it's literally the ultimate expression of cheerful, joyful glee. Because not only after telling him that the money had grown so much, now, because of how much the money had grown, he would be able to pay for however long it would take for the operation to finally be successful, and basically his sister, be able to let out with a clean bill of health. If you guys are wondering what exact illness this villain's sister was inflicted with, cancer. Specifically, I believe leukemia, lung cancer. Specifically leukemia, aka lung cancer. And it was towards nearing stage 4 by the time that steel was actually made, and so they didn't think she would be able to recover. But seeing as it hadn't exactly gotten to stage 4 yet, there was still a slightest bit of hope that they could somehow find a way to get her back on her feet. And, well, this indeed does happen. However, whenever the guy, basically, he's thanking Izuku profusely, and even thanks Inko for, giving birth to such a charitable young child. This guy, this villain, is I could probably picture your little boy becoming a hero one day, and a hero that, if I had, been around long enough for him to encounter me, I'd gladly allow him to take me to prison. However, that doesn't become a reality because the one who does take him to prison is, well, basically, after checking up on his sister, after, exiting the Midoriya household, the first thing he does is go to the hospital to check up on his sister. And upon, going to leave with his sister, they're both apprehended, and, well, the sister is basically taken to some sort of place, some people in, suits, basically apprehend her, and are going to try to take her someplace, and basically the person that apprehends the villain guy is Endeavor, the flame hero, the number 2 hero, Endeavor. And Endeavor just apprehends this guy, and remembering the deal that he made, he does not resist in the slightest. Just asking for Endeavor to be kind enough to at least allow him to say goodbye. However, Endeavor, he does have somewhat of a soul, so he at least tries to mull this over, whether he should allow this to happen or not. Well, he's going to go to jail regardless, so maybe, and just right around the time that Endeavor makes his decision, is whenever all of a sudden, somehow, there's this guy in the middle, with the fanciest suit out of them all, who just flicks his fingers whenever all the other guys touch his arms. They are all a hold of him, and also a hold of the villain guy's sister. Whenever this guy in the middle with the fanciest suit out of all of them just flicks his finger, and they all of a sudden just teleport out of there like they're freaking Dimension X people from like the Ninja Turtles or some shit. They do some sort of dimension warping shit. So yeah, basically pulling up all crazy like, and just pulling out more or less, not pulling up, more pulling out all crazy like. Because you know they just pull like some sort of nutty professor bullshit and just they don't even walk in, they just appear in the room, and then whenever they make their exit by freaking Dimension X type teleporting out of the freaking ever. Like, Endeavor doesn't even know how to respond to that. First, these people just appear, they don't even walk in, they appear, and now they just freaking, he doesn't even know what the hell, but they just disappeared like they were like Thanosized. But Endeavor still has to do his job. Endeavor still has to do his thing. And so the person is still going to be taken to prison. But it's more or less not exactly prison, but it is more or less jail. Because he more or less didn't try to put up a fight. He complied actually very easily with Endeavor, who was the one who apprehended him. So really, it was kind of weak sauce, you know, and kind of petty sauce. It'd be considered petty, very petty sauce for the Hero Association to basically, go ahead with law enforcement and send this man to prison. So instead of that, they just send him to jail as the next best thing. And, well, Izuku would kind of get like this spidey sense sensation whenever a deal has been successfully, executed. And that this guy that he made the deal with was indeed apprehended, and he did not fight at all. And Izuku, getting this sensation, and now knowing exactly what the sensation means, basically would just be like, claps for that guy. Izuku would indeed be very happy about successful deals. And really, it was a pretty weak sauce deal. All he had to do was just comply if he was ever, pulled up by any hero and, was attempted to get arrested. That's all he really had to do was just not fight it. Considering that the guy was just happy that his sister was still alive, it was pretty easy for him to just comply with being arrested, especially since it's the number 2 hero. Do you really think you're going to want to fight the number 2 hero and get, scorched to death? So, yeah, Izuku's just, in his room and is just opens his window, actually, and jumps out of the house and actually gets a lawn chair. Yeah, another one of these powers that he was able to pull from first. First, it was the deal, and the second power that he was able to pull up with is the ability to pull shit out of nowhere. Literally. Complete and total, bullshittery upon the entire freaking universe by just being able to pull shit out of nowhere. And that certain shit that Izuku pulled out of nowhere was a lawn chair. And a freaking... Oh my god. I swear I am not sponsored by Cookout. I am not sponsored by them, but oh my god, their double chocolate peanut butter shakes are delicious. So Izuku would just pull up a lawn chair and a double chocolate peanut butter shake from Cookout. And, it would be one of the larger sizes. And so Izuku would just be enjoying his shake well under the cover of the moonlight and the stars, gracing upon the sky. Just in his lawn chair, enjoying his shake, and, all to the night sky. Technically, he would have a barrier around him. He would have been able to materialize out of nothing in order to make sure that if it started raining, that no rain got on him. Basically, that nothing rained on his parade that he was having currently. So yeah, basically, rain would have been a mild annoyance to him. So he just pulls up some sort of barrier thing, like a see-through tent. Basically, yeah, he pulls up a lawn chair, a double chocolate peanut butter shake, and a see-through tent. So that he doesn't get rained on while looking at the stars and gazing at the moon. And that is indeed where we will end off the first part, with Izuku chilling like a villain underneath the night sky. Now, the end of the direction of memory gets LUG out of here, and bye, gold, bye. Yeah, that's right. I just did that. I pulled that. I did that. Sorry, not sorry.